I'll just say them. I think a coach has to be relational. I think that you have to be humble, and then I think teachable. Teachable and humble will probably go hand in hand because you can't be teachable if you have zero humility. I think leadership. I read a great book on humility once, and the biggest quality that people look for in their leaders was humility.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it. Today we are joined by the head boys basketball coach at Central Heights High School, Kevin Herron. Coach Herron is in his 28th year of coaching, 22 as a head coach, and has over 400 wins. He was an assistant coach at Waxahachie and South Hills for 6 years before becoming the head coach at Central Heights. He's led the Blue Devils to 6 district titles. Coach Herron is a past TABC board member and has served as athletic director at Central Heights for 14 years. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast. Well, man, I just want to thank you so much for giving up your time, coming on talking some hoops with me. Had the pleasure of getting to be around you at the clinic that you host, and definitely didn't feel qualified out of that lineup. I think I was the most unqualified to be there. But, man, really appreciate you giving up your time.
Well, I'm glad to be here. You've had some dudes on here, so I'm just it's just an honor to kind of talk basketball. It's what I like to do. So,
well, I'll just tell you, I mean, 400 plus wins. I think you're kind of one of those dudes.
I appreciate that. I don't always feel that way, but I'm very thankful to be there because I don't know. You can just see how quickly that can not happen, I guess, sometimes. So,
yeah. I appreciate the humility that you have. And I think that is always a great thing for us to remember. It's kind of like the perspective that we want our players to have. We want them to remember that when things are bad, we're not as bad as we think we are. But when things were good, we're not as great as we think we are either. Right. It sounds like you kind of get that on the coaching side.
Yeah, trying to. Sometimes this season, sometimes things felt real bad and they couldn't get worse, but we were young and it was, but so just try to learn from it.
When you have a young team and you feel like you don't want to necessarily tell them that it's not going to happen this year for us, but maybe you see that you're building something more towards future success and it may not happen this year. How do you keep your team focused maybe on getting better through those tough times when you know that you guys will be better for it in the long run?
Yeah, that's difficult sometimes. The wrestle for me, just to prequel that, is this year I knew I was going to get to like 400 wins. I wanted it to be a little easier than it was. Pridefully, and so I wrestled with, do I change the schedule? Our schedule had been what I think is pretty tough for a long time, and I chose not to. And so we took
Coach, good choice there, because I'll be honest. If you would have said, "Yeah, I know I had 400 wins, so man, I changed that schedule up, and we had all easy ones," I think that's delete that rather than.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't just about that. It was
right.
The wrestle. It was also I'm just being honest that it fed into, with a young team. God, maybe I won't even get there with a young team, which again, that's pride, and I don't really care, but it's fun at the same time. But
no doubt,
the issue was, can I handle the hard schedule? And I would say they handled it better than I did at times, but the focus was always, and this is how I think you keep them focused, is nothing matters but district. These don't matter. What these teams are good. These are our measuring stick. This is where we want to be. And we came out the first game of district and just looked like one of the best teams I've had. We got after it, and I credit the tough schedule to that. And we had our lulls in district. That's going to happen again with a young team, knowing how to consistently win. But I I think they did a good job of understanding it wasn't about these games. I think in the future with this team, it can be about those games because those are the teams that we feel like we should start competing with as this group gets older, not just competing with, but beating. And so we can pay more attention to some of the or worry a little more about not beating them. I guess is what do we have to fix? Where are we falling short? If that makes sense.
It does. And I really love getting to hear. I don't always get to talk about scheduling with coaches, but I love getting to hear what other coaches, the thought process is with scheduling, because I feel like that's one of those things that when you start out, you've got your on-court plan, you may have your culture plan, but there's really no rule book or how-to for scheduling.
Mm.
And sometimes you get lucky, and like I did at Faith, I inherited a schedule that Coach Lovell had put together the year before. We had a really talented team, and it lined up. I kept the same schedule with a team that was way younger, didn't have the talent, but I think knowing your team, and then knowing, are they the type of team that can get their heads beat in, but like you said, know that this doesn't matter as far as wins and losses, but we're getting better from it? Or are they a team that if they lose too many too early, there's this crippling sense of we're not good enough? They reclaim or recover that confidence? And we were 0-9 that year, really competitive against some great competition. But looking back, I think that team struggled to truly believe that they were good, that they could overcome. And part of it was that 0-9 start. But I don't know. I don't think there's a right answer to it. But I love that you brought it up, because I think we all struggle with what decisions to make.
Yeah, I agree. But we try to make it tough because it prepares us for district. That's the whole mindset. So
Chris Ryburn at Midland Christian, they just won state this year, and they were really good at 5A taps. But he made a comment that I thought was really good: is that you don't want your toughest opponent to be in district or in playoffs, like over the year. Because if you get to, let's just say, second, third round, and that team is the best team that you've played all year, like, might be in trouble at that point. So
yeah.
in pre-district, make sure you've got a couple juggernauts in there. I think it's a good nugget.
Yep, I agree.
Coach, I got to ask first, how many years coaching now?
Total years, 20. This is finishing 27, and then
27.
as a head coach, this is finishing 21, and they've all been here at Central Heights.
That's pretty cool.
It
I
is.
mean, there's something. I've been at Faith for 11 years, only place head coach. There's something about, like, being at one place for a long time, really feeling like, man, you're like, I gotta imagine you feel so invested in the community at 21 years. I mean, you're starting to see guys that, if they still live around you, guys that you coached, their kids starting to come through. Not calling you old, but I think that's really special. Is that something you always wanted, to have that kind of career?
It's very weird. When I felt like I got the call to, it was in high school, and the vision for this, for coaching and teaching, the vision I got was to be in a community like this. And I started off at Waxahachie in the Metroplex there, and it was a one high school town, and it seemed like a place and to be. And I was waiting to be the head coach, and coach wasn't retiring, and then I landed here and was going to be here a year. That was my plans. And something happened where it was a deep impression I really believe the Lord gave me to stay and plant. And He has not uprooted me yet, though I have. There are times you feel like I got to go somewhere else, or for whatever reason, it's hard to stay. It's not easy just to stay in a spot because you're going to create people who don't like how you did things. You're going to feel like you need to move on, just so many things, and family, being in Dallas and getting older, and all these things that pull at you, and we're still here. and still investing. And I don't regret a minute of it. And I sometimes when I'm talking to the Lord, I'm like, you told me to stay here, so I'm waiting. You know, what do you want me to do? Anyway? But
Yeah.
it's been a neat journey for sure. So
I mean, when I think about like 21, for me it'd be 10 more years at this place. And there is something that just special, it seems, about like my Tommy Thomas was at the Colony for 17 years, and that was the only place he coached. And there's not to say that guys that do change jobs. I mean, there's great reasons to take other jobs, and
yeah,
especially if your aspirations are to move up to, excuse me, a certain level or maybe to college. And I don't think I have any of those. um but the other thought is, after 11 years here, and you have to feel the same way, like the culture, the traditions, man, like starting over with those from scratch. Like, take something like we snap, right? We snap to celebrate. It's a PGC thing, but I mean, we've been snapping for 10, 11 years here now, where these junior high kids, they see me in the hall and they, start snapping. If I was to go to a new place and day one say, guys, listen, when we you hear something that you agree with, when we're celebrating each other, like, we're going to snap. That just, to me, it's like, man, I don't know if I like starting over like that. Maybe there's some fun in that challenge, but I got to imagine it'd be tough to do that, right?
I would think so. Every time I've thought about it, there's a little bit of excitement in that, but at the same, where I can correct all the mistakes that I made here or
Mm,
things I wish I would have done different. But again, I mean, I tell junior high kids here that the CH on the wall stands for Coach Herron. The young kids, they don't really believe me, but I think it's funny because I've been here forever. But uh, uh, yeah, to reestablish expectations, to reestablish things that aren't always easy to establish, and sometimes, and so there's a thrill in it, but also, man, can I do it again? I mean,
yeah,
do I want to do that again? That's a lot of work. So
yeah.
so
With all those years of coaching, being a head coach, I would imagine that, and the clinic that you host, bringing those coaches in, learning new things, hearing new things, having that growth mindset. What's one of the best things you feel like you borrowed lately?
lately, I think the test for us, when you graduate heavy and you got guys that put in time, is finding ways to get guys in the gym. You'd think at an all basketball school that they just are in here, and some are. We have a fairly good group of young guys that love to be in here, but our shooting time is 6:30 in the morning. Kids get a car and they're responsible to get to school. And they don't always get up,
Yeah,
and and you can't hold it over their head. I mean, I'm finding ways, but Coach Henderson, Danny, over at Richland, we spent the state tournament together this year, and just they do a little shooting drill in the morning, and it's competitive. And so I started just having them keep track of wins, and then I'm posting those every day so all the parents can see them, kids. So there's some motivation. Hey, you're not. Where's your name? Hopefully, and
yeah,
then it's the reward is you get to come to the gym on a day that we might be in the weight room, like, and you have to do your weights after school, or you don't get to be in the gym. You have to go do your weights with a coach. And so it's not a punishment. So I'm not punishing them. It's a reward to those who have been here and who
hmm,
are in the lead for the first top 15 or so. So that just finding ways to get them in the gym right now, as far as that. And so those are some of the nuggets I look for, how to teach things a little bit better. I mean, I don't always. I love to talk about plays or whatnot, but the truth is, I'm always looking for a play that fits what I have this year, or what. So those type of nuggets, player development type things, to get
yeah.
them in, motivational stuff. And so that's been a good thing for us, because they're coming in. I mean, not as consistently as I want, but it's never going to be what I want. So
I had an AD one time, assistant AD, remind me that we're the weird ones.
Right.
Like not them, not the kids. Most of them are pretty normal with their like of the game.
Yeah.
Our obsession with it is abnormal.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. So,
I like the idea. I like that idea of finding creative ways to bring guys into the gym, and I think that's maybe part of the art of coaching or the fun kind of we talked about is the days of be in here or else you're not going to play.
right.
Some kids just won't play. The message loud and clear, I'm out. And also I don't think that's really we want to be growing and cultivating the like or love of the game that they have. Part of that is making it fun. Another part is I think kids today even more are they're very conscious of wasting time. They don't mind wasting time on their phones, but they want to waste time the way that they want to waste time. And so if they feel like when they get in the gym, they're not necessarily getting better, there's no plan, there's no reason for it, I don't think they'll come. I think the motivating games, the competition, the other factors, I think that is really good.
You said something that kind of piqued my interest. The idea of it's got to be fun. We got to find ways to keep them because, like you said, some kids just won't do it. And I was talking to some coaches today. My girls' coaches, because there's sometimes we can as coaches make it unfun. And I said girls have to have fun to win, and guys have to win to have fun. But I don't think that's as necessarily true for guys anymore.
Yeah.
I think the culture of kid needs to have. They need to belong. They need to feel loved. They need to have fun. So those are things that are important to them, And I think higher level kids that start to get it are in the gym to work all the time. There. I think there's a different mentality for
Yeah.
some of the kids that I coach compared to you name a large Dallas school and with kids that have real con, high level college aspirations. I mean, it's a different mindset. It really is. I mean, and obviously, I want my kids to be that good or to have a chance to play, and I've had some. But the reality is, my guys are going to go to SFA or A&M, and they're gonna go to work with their families. Going to have a chicken farm here, things like that. So that's the reality.
Yeah, and I think one knowing the motivations of each of your players is important because you may be able to, to figure out what gets them going a little bit more. A guy that doesn't want to play in college is going to be motivated the same way that
Right.
one that does. But then there's challenges in that because some guys will say that they want to play, but then it's kind of what that Alan Stein quote is, are your habits on par with your aspirations? And when you see that they're not, the struggle for me and I think most coaches is how do you get that player to align
Mm.
or see a little bit more without just calling them a poser? Like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
say you want this, but no, you don't. Like
Right.
if they say they want it, they want to make that jump to the next level. Okay, are you working are your habits in a way that will help you to actually do that? I've seen too many guys say that that's what they want, but then their habits don't really meet. And I feel the friction there. But what I don't want to do is alienate them either as their head coach. And I don't know if I've always been good at that.
I struggle with that. I have two right now that are. I mean, they rip the goal down on and they can shoot and they want to go play next level and they'll tell you that and you know it's like pulling teeth and I'm trying try every way I can do to get them up there in the morning to say you need to be doing the weight room has changed. They're working harder there. They realize after being young this year they've got to get stronger. They're tired of getting pushed around. Now let's put some other things on it. And then you don't want to be over demanding for their time because they're kids. And I think we can forget that real quick. So I know I can. Anyway.
Oh, no doubt. Guilty of that. You know, we're constantly withdrawing from them, taking their time, taking their energy,
Mhm.
asking of them to do more and more and more. Like at what point do we deposit? Like when do we have those opportunities? And maybe in one-on-ones we do, and so those player meetings, but I don't believe in the burnt out thing. I think, yeah, obviously some people get burnt out, but ultimately they just didn't want it bad enough.
Yeah.
Because I love ice cream. If I eat mint chocolate chip ice cream every night for 2 weeks, there's going to be a point where I'm like, oh, no more. Like I'm done with that. And then I got to figure out, okay, how badly do I really love ice cream? If I love it a lot, then I'm going to keep eating it no matter what.
Hear you.
But everybody feels that what people call burnout, but it's the ability to push through. But I don't know. I feel like, especially in the spring and summer, and in the fall it's a little bit easier because we have that leading to the season. But
Right.
when it's so far away, if they don't have this intrinsic motivation inside of them, what is the way to
Yeah.
make it fun? I think this circles back to maybe what we've been talking about the whole time is, how do we make it fun? How do we want them to keep going for them, not just because they feel like they have to?
Yeah. And I think it's creating an environment they want to be around and be in, and eventually the work is just part of being involved in something that they want to be involved in. And I wouldn't say I'm the best at building culture, those buzzwords of culture nowadays. I've tried to create that because of relationships I build with them, but I have coaches on staff who do a great job, and their kids want to be here all the time. It's very important to them. So trying to learn from that as well as I get older, So
Coaches, we are all searching for ways to better evaluate players in order to give meaningful feedback. Over 15 years ago, I put together a test called the Jamodi Skill Rating. The JSR takes players through a series of tests involving basketball skill or athleticism, giving them one rating at the end. Their JSR rating will give you clarity on what needs to be discussed with players and parents on areas they need to focus on improving. I test our players at least 4 times each year. They're able to compete against each other, past players' scores, and most importantly, their past performances. If you'd like to start testing your athletes, email me at jamodipodcast@gmail.com for more information. Characteristics of great coaches. If you had to choose maybe 3, it could be more or less. What are some of those ideas? All the coaches you've been able to be around with clinics and with your experience. What do you think?
I'm going to give you 4 because I think the last one works really well with the first 3, and I'll just say them. I think a coach has to be relational. A good coach, ultimately, that's my opinion. Certainly there are great coaches that they just win. But relational. I think that you have to be humble, uh, and then I think teachable. Teachable and humble probably go hand in hand because you can't be teachable if you have zero humility.
Yeah.
And I think leadership. I read a great book on humility once, and the biggest quality that people look for in their leaders was humility. And I still think that's true. I still think people want a leader who's not afraid of their own mistakes, nor and doesn't kind of lord over that leadership. And I think coaches, we can do that sometimes. But every coach, at my clinic last year, how many older coaches were there that spoke that still just love to learn,
Yeah.
teachable, and I'll take as an AD, I see teachable even more. Like sometimes I have to um, correct my coaches, or a parent meeting happens and they're not happy. I think we can receive that with it's just a silly parent, and I've been that guy, and it's you don't know, you don't understand, you're just a parent. But if we're wise, I think we'll glean something from every single one of those. That doesn't mean we agree with everything they said. That doesn't mean, oh, I'm a bad coach and this every parent's right. It means, is there something to what they're saying that I can do better? And I think that's what teachable means. And I think if we good coaches will remain teachable. And then the last one is demanding. I think you have to demand things. Um, And the trick is to demand without demeaning. I'm sure you've heard that before. And
Yeah.
but so those four are pretty important, and that's what I look for in my coaches. And and I see there's things I have as a AD have to correct with some of my coaches, and just hey, ain't nobody mad at you, because we can be defensive. We invest and invest and invest, and here comes somebody coming at you, and you want to wait a minute and put up your walls, and I'm guilty. But if we'll just step back for a second, let them say what they need to say, and allow it to teach our hearts, whatever it may be. Nothing, it may be nothing, but let's give it a chance to. So
No, that's really good nuggets there. And I wrote down kind of an arrow from teachable and humility. Like it helps you to not be defensive. And
yeah,
I think you're right on the money. Like with our players that maybe challenge boundaries or just ask questions, ask questions about why we're doing this or that. If you have a level of humility, if you are teachable yourself, maybe you're able to handle that player's questioning not as an attack on you and what you know. And then I love that you took it to parent meetings because you're right on the money. I believe most parents in parent meetings just want to be heard. So instead of launching into why we're right from the beginning or just already being on the defensive, thinking that this is going to be a fight, I think we stay humble, remember that we don't know everything going on at home. And it's a great opportunity to learn more about that. We
yeah,
may learn more about Johnny and how he is because of how his parent, is talking to me right now.
right,
And I think having that idea of like, was it Jordan Peterson said, like, assume that you can learn something from everybody that you come in contact with. Man, that's helpful right there.
yep, that's good. It's real good. So,
I had a recently was able to talk to Doug Gallion and 40 years, 700 plus wins, never won a state championship. I think I mean, maybe the 700 wins or the 40 years. I don't know about that, but the not winning a state championship, I think that's possible, more likely for most of us,
yep,
right? Like, not many guys actually do that. And
right,
so we could go our whole careers and that not happen. But what he said was that part wasn't important to him, but it was the relationships. Going back to that relational piece, when Coach Thomas retired after a few years, nobody really cared about his coaching anymore.
right,
But it was the relationships that he built with us that remain.
yeah, yeah, and I think that's what I think is what honestly, for honest, that's what keeps us in it. It's the phone calls 5 years later. It's those things. So
Coaching paychecks.
yeah, yeah, that's
That's
right.
it. That's
So
it.
yeah,
I don't get to talk about scouting reports very often. And so when coaches kind of bring that up or have that planned out, that is really interesting to me. What are your thoughts on scouting reports and then also in-game adjustments?
so I'm not a guy that hands every player a scouting report, and maybe that's bad on me, but uh, I think there's certain kids that can handle that. I don't want them overloaded. I want them to go play. For one, we do talk about make him go a certain direction, or we're going to double this. But I think I've created paralysis by analysis at times. As far as my scouting, I try to see live everybody. I know we can get video all the time, but there's something about seeing teams live. I don't think a lot of people do that much anymore because I try to because you can see speed better, size better,
Yeah.
and maybe you'll hear a call that you didn't see on video. Maybe still that too. Um, but what I try to preach to us that if we'll do what we do, we're going to be fine. And then you know I heard it said like this once in game. Um, Before you start changing everything in game, make sure they're playing as hard as they need to be and doing things as hard as they need to be. So demand that first before you abandon stuff. And
Yeah.
I think in-game adjustments uh, are not always easy. I think sometimes it's a team by team deal. I can think of some teams where, man, they made me look real smart just by telling them to do something, and and they were able to do it. But I, as far as in-game adjustments, I'm not afraid, and I don't think a coach should be afraid to throw everything they can at somebody to try to regain momentum advantage, whether it's you're a man team and play zone a couple possessions, whatever it may be. And there are times for sure that I failed in adjustments. I can think of several games where, man, what if I would have just gone all denial on that guy that was unconscious, but we were
Yeah.
still winning, and then we wound up losing. But if I'd have shut him down a little more, So I think in-game adjustments, there are masterminds of that. I think of David Milson, who was kind of a mentor to me from Cedar Hill years ago. He's passed on, but I thought he always had a play ready, and so that's just I try to really observe better what they're doing so that I can come up with something to help my guys in game. I don't know if there's a secret to it.
Yeah.
Uh, Perhaps the secret is preparation. Uh, I can think of a big game last year, not this past year, but the season before, and we just have a call that come really we call it Scotty because the Highland Park Scots run a lot of slip screens, and so I'll just yell Scotty, meaning we're going to slip this next ball screen. It sounds like I'm just calling somebody's name, and
Yeah.
so hopefully it's not a call, and hopefully nobody in my district listens to this and knows that that's what we're doing. But it actually got us the two or three buckets we needed down the stretch in a road game a couple years ago that was key to winning district. So you know, uh, so preparation is probably the key to being able to make adjustments because if you don't prepare them for as many scenarios as possible, you're not going to, the adjustments are probably not going to be unless they're high IQ, high talent players that can if that makes yeah I think
Yeah.
it's at high school level you're not going to have as many of those complete teams that can do that. You may have
But
two or
you,
three kids per team, but maybe
yeah.
not all.
But to your point too, it's not really about their IQ because they're not the ones making the adjustment. Like it is, it's about us. I've struggled. I feel like with the in-game adjustments, I'm much more of a Jason Garrett process. Like this is what we do. We're pretty simple. We're just
Right.
going to stick with it. And I think for me, you're right on the money. Preparation is huge. Mentally, as a coach, being prepared for situations that could come up. Because if you just hope that you make the right move, the right change, basing your game on hope as a player is never good. I think as
Right.
a coach, we don't want to base our game on hope. So I don't know. I've struggled at knowing the right time, when to do things, the right call. What are your thoughts on involving assistant coaches more with that? Like almost if you have multiple assistants, I need you to look for defensive opportunities where you feel like we need to make a change. We need to flow from what we're in right now. We need to go from our 3-2. We need to go to man. We need to play it different. Will you let me know? And we always have the ability to say, you know what, I hear you. I think we're good right now. But what are your thoughts on giving them those
Oh,
kind of what do you call it? Focus, that focus.
that's a good point. I think I could probably have my guys focus more on that. I do tell them, let me know who didn't black out. Let me know these things. But what tends to happen in our little meetings at a timeout or whatever, or my assistants, well, what about this? They're always saying, hey, maybe we need to go into this. And when I was a younger coach, and I think I struggled with giving that rein up. That
Yeah.
it's just, which is so silly to be honest, because man, these guys are watching the same game. You can't see everything, so I find that to be their thoughts are probably better than mine because I'm trying to process who knows how many, and if they're not there, I'm fortunate to have a couple older guys, and they're not. they don't care if I say no, we're not doing that. So they're going to legitimately just say, hey, try this. And most of the time they're right because I'm not seeing everything that they're seeing. They have a distinct advantage to not have to process everything. So
Yeah.
I think it's foolish if we don't use them for that. And you've given me a reason to even ask for it more. So
Well,
yeah.
it's just it was more of a I think something I definitely need to do better. I had an assistant coach years ago, starting out at Faith, that he older gentleman that actually had played in an adult league with when I was in high school. So I've known this guy for a long time, kind of almost a father figure. And I just kind of made because I think as coaches we'll make this comment to our assistants sometimes like, hey guys, I want your input. Like let me know things. And it's good to say that for sure. But when they do, it's not just a yep, that's good. Nope, shh, like brush it aside. Actually taking the time to think about it, and then ultimately, making the decision to say yes or no. But when I said that, he kind of pulled me aside. He said, "Matt, do you really want to know what I'm thinking?" I said, "Coach, I just said it. Like I just said that I want." He's like, "Okay, I don't feel like you really do. Just so you know." And like that was a moment. Like, okay, I wrote down the word confidence. Like, why as a head coach would we be resistant to listening to our assistant coaches more? And this is my experiences. I think it's a lack of confidence. You
Yeah.
don't want to show that maybe you don't know everything, and you're afraid, to let down those walls. I think it takes a very confident coach to be able to, like you said, man, giving up control, giving them more ownership of the program, man, that's terrifying. Like, I think if we're honest about it, because we
Yeah.
all know whatever happens and goes wrong, extreme ownership says it's our fault.
Right.
And
Right.
so, but having the confidence, no, despite what our age is or how many years of experience, to ask for their opinion, but truly want it.
Yeah.
That's hard.
I've turned over the subbing to my coach at times, and that's tough too. But really, and
Yeah, because
I'll
you can't go, why him? What are you
yeah. Well,
doing?
and I've probably been guilty of that. I'm like, whoa, whoa, not right now. When I have the trump card, which
Yeah, no doubt.
uh, but there's times I'm like, okay, who's in the game? Because I'm really not looking at who's in the game. I'm watching to see where you're supposed to be, and I rarely pay attention to who it is as much as hey until I see, oh, you're not where you're supposed to be. Oh, that was you. So
Yeah.
that's like, and then late in the game, I have take a little more control of the substitutions back. But I've found that takes even more off me in the game, and it has made me better. Maybe at thinking about the adjustments or just
Yeah.
uh, seeing where we need to correct because I'm not thinking about who's in. And we have some non-negotiables. If a kid doesn't block out, he's got to come over.
Right.
Uh, that's it's just got to happen. And body language, attitude, those things. I'm going to get you pretty quick because I'm big on those, and I think most coaches are. Uh, but as far as subbing and early on, I want him to sub. I want him to get people in. I want to know who's ready to play tonight because there are times that it's not your night, but somebody else is ready to go and playing better. So I think early in the game, if you can get some bodies in and see who's playing well, and that helps you dictate later in the game. Of course, you still got to go with your dude when it's dude time.
Do
So
you stand more or sit more in games?
I can't sit down. I get into it. I'm a really laid back guy. I really am. I think it drives my wife nuts, but uh, and I've tried to be a little more chill, but man, I absolutely love it, and
Yeah.
I love, you know, uh, I just love getting in. I'm into the game, so
Yeah.
yeah,
I was a stand only guy for a long time. Um, and then I'm not sure what the motivation was. Maybe, maybe I wanted my players to see me sit some as if almost like they got it. And I don't know if they take it that way, but then I actually heard, man, somebody talk about Steve Kerr. He stands and he sits at different times, but there's like a strategic reason to why he stands or sits. And
Hmm.
like I think I need to look into that a little bit more. But one thing that helped me with sitting or happened when I sat more was I was able to ask my assistants more questions.
Hmm.
Like one of my favorite is just what changes do we need to make? And that is addressing maybe personnel, addressing offense or defense, and being prepared to make changes that those guys recommend. Also, a byproduct of that too is so I think sometimes if as a head coach, if you are in charge of the substitution pattern, players will think that you're the only one doing that and not pit assistants against or anything. But I like for our whole staff for it to appear like we are all on the same page.
Yeah, yeah,
When I ask them that, and a couple of those other players are sitting right on the other side of them, and I say, what changes do we need to make? And they say, we're good right now. Almost kind of letting them know, like,
yeah,
we're not going to change right now. Like we're all in agreement that that five on the floor is
yeah. That
what we
makes sense.
need. I don't know. It's just kind of a little tiny thing, but I do think there are definite moments when we need to stand, we need a fist bump, we need to. Wes Watson would do a 2 foot stomp that would just shake and rattle the gym.
Yeah,
There's times for that.
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
Man, the Denver Nuggets coach had a great post game conference about adjustments. And he said, why would we adjust if the effort's not good or we're not executing the way we're supposed to? Like those, to me, that's the measuring stick of because we were talking early on about when do we make these changes? If they're playing really hard and they're trying to do what we're asking them to do and it's not working, good measuring stick to make a change.
Right.
But because I've had an assistant coach or a junior high coach maybe come to a game and say, "Man, how come you never got out of man to man or we run if our zone? How come you never got out of the zone?" And I would just tell them, I didn't feel like we were executing the way we're supposed to execute in it. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Or is lack of execution or lack of effort? Should we make a change to possibly get that going?
Okay, last game of the last season, I thought. I mean, that was a good team. We were second; they were the third place team. They had a lot of size. We had our big boy, and they were older. And I watched tons of video. Um, we came out the way we do, doing our thing. I don't think we were as mentally prepared. Probably my fault. I'm not going to blame that on kids. I maybe did a poor job getting us ready. I can't explain it. But we came out a little, you could see real nervous. Maybe that's a youth thing. Had some turnovers early, and they absolutely torched the net. Like a guy that I didn't see hit but a few threes goes 5 for 5, I think. Right. And so we find ourselves down about 20 or close to it. And I could see us. We were about to implode. I felt like, or just, and so I started subbing 5 and 5, and we pressed them every ounce of the floor, and we cut it back down to 8 by late in the third, maybe early fourth, blow a layup, whatever. We wound
Mm,
up losing by 12, but it changed us, and we played better. We played with less fear.
mm.
Uh, or less apprehension. I don't want to call it 100% afraid. Just we just played finally, and but it was almost too little, too late.
Yeah.
I started it a little earlier, but it was midway through the second that kind of kept it at a 19-point game at half, and then we clawed back. And so your answer to your question is yes. Sometimes you do change it to get to get the effort. Uh, that's why there are times that maybe you start off pressing just to get the effort level.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because half of what we do is just effort. I had a kid last year and he's not good. I'm not, bless his heart, he could barely catch sometimes. And if we had been older or a little bit deeper, he may not have played. but he
Hmm.
probably would have because he played so hard. You know, people go, why do you play that guy? Watch, he always has the ball. He's always he can. I mean, and it's hard to justify almost because he can't shoot, and he's missing key layups, a bunch of them. But man, he plays so hard, and you know some of the better players didn't respect him like they needed to.
Hmm.
And but I would praise him. You can't be on the floor because you don't play as hard as him, you know,
Hmm.
in front of the whole team, and it is. I mean, so hopefully they learn from that. But you give me five guys that just play hard, you're going to have a chance to win every game. You know, you'll eventually, by the law of averages, hit a couple shots, maybe some free throws, but you'll at least defend and block out and get on the floor for the 50-50 balls. And so, and that's what I mean, just preach playing hard. And they don't know what hard is either. So,
That's a good point. I think I was talking with Debbie Black. Debbie Black, for people that don't know, PGC legend. She played in the WNBA for a long time. At 5'2", she had a quadruple double
wow.
in a game. Just, I thought I knew what playing hard was, and then I watched clips of Debbie Black, and we have our guys watch some of her highlights every year when we're talking about defensive pestitude. But I think you're right. I think somehow we need to get our guys, obviously it's during practice or training of some kind, knowing what 100% feels like, because there's almost this like almost a blackout moment that you have when you're going that hard, but it's hard to get there. And I think most players, to your point, when they say they're going hard, they don't realize that there's a whole other level that you can get to. Coach, how do we get them there?
Good
Get on the
question.
line.
Oh, oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
No,
I
how
know.
do you get them? It's kind of, I mean, you can go back to motivation or training, getting in the gym. What did Bobby Knight say? Like, the toughest part about coaching is wanting to win more than your players do, right? Like, but how do we get them knowing what hard 100% really is like?
Yeah, that's the question. And usually I would say most of us point to a player who's doing it already. It's not to somebody that wasn't doing it and then started doing it. I think there is a level, not all, that's right in their heart already. They're going to go hard, and I can name them. Didn't have to ask. They just went hard. They wanted.
Yeah.
There's a competitive greatness in them that they want to win. And so uh, I'll say this: where I coach, no football. I, People think that's a great advantage, and it is skill wise. But sometimes in
Mm.
the competitiveness wise, it's not, because when you start playing some of these athletic football teams that once they get going, they've been wrestling and their strength is different,
Yeah,
and
that's true.
it's not easy. So trying to teach them how hard they have to play against guys like that is tough, and sometimes losing helps that helps teach them that, oh, I better pick it up.
Yeah.
uh, and I think it's whatever you demand in practice every day, whatever you allow to happen will happen. So we try to do a lot of things like 4-on-4 in the paint where they're not allowed to switch and they're not allowed to dribble. It's a Jeff Bell, who's won more games than I'll ever even coach in. Um, just a toughness game to
Yeah.
them to rub body on body and have to play physically hard in order to win. Things like that. I think you can eventually, build that. You know, so but
Playing
it is.
hard, yeah, playing hard and things like toughness. What's difficult about them to me is that they are subjective,
Yeah,
quite a bit. Like you can see it and you know when you see it, but even just describing it is tough. And I think
yeah,
you nailed it though. It starts in practice, and although there are moments to teach, and even in a game like that 4-on-4 game, find something or multiple drills throughout practice that you see accesses something else in them,
Right.
and then stay in those. So, like for us, it ended up being a 3-on-3 no dribble game. And that's a hard game for me offensively to play and practice because it's opposite of how we play. We don't really screen. We stay spaced.
Yeah.
We attack off the bounce. But what we lack sometimes defensively is practice of fighting through screens
Yeah.
because we don't screen that much. So like our guys, they're experiencing that action more in games. Man, we went to this 3-on-3, and then we could add in a dribble or two, or they start to help side becomes even more important, right? Because of the bounce. And that game, though, coach, 3-on-3, we play to 11. You get it's ones and twos offensively, but you get 3 points for every offensive rebound.
Yeah.
You get 3 points if you take a charge defensively, like, and you have three teams and they're fighting through. I saw us access toughness that in the past we haven't had. And so, like, it happens in practice, and then be creative, find ways to manipulate and pull that out of them, but
Yeah.
then celebrate it when you see it.
Right. That's good. You got to celebrate when you see it, or, you know, so you're right. Those are all, and I love the no dribble. We do a ton of no dribble stuff. I think just to get better at pivoting with pressure and
There's a lot of things to it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
and let's not overuse the. We don't dribble as much, but I'm kind of trying to loosen that up. But you've got to make great choices when you do dribble.
Sure.
So but learning to move without the ball and stay spaced. So many good things when you take away the dribble. I love it, and again, you said it there, and you said something about 3 points for an offensive rebound. Well, you want to get better blocking out? Yeah, give up 3 points. So
That's right.
every drill we do, one of my favorite drills, we call it circle the wagons and back. And Donnie Bostwick at Oklahoma Westland. Have you ever met Donnie?
Oh
Donnie's
yeah. Oh yeah.
a
I did
top
a hoops
five.
talk with him. That was a good one.
Yeah, he's great. And but he will do circle the wagons, and the defense is circling, and we shoot it, and it's not fair at all because these JVers or whoever has a running start to get the ball. They're on a torpedo. And I'll be like all over my guys if they don't block them out. But you always have one or two JV guys that are they're just hard to block out. And they're going full speed. And it's brutal. And so we'll get it, we'll transition and come back. And a lot of times I'll have another JV group waiting. That JV group's off. And so all they got to do is get it out, kick it ahead, and they have to get back in a hurry. Now the transition works there, and then they have to get it and drive it. So just trying to toughen them up in every aspect of what is, and of course they get points, 3 points every time they get an offensive rebound, every time they score. And it's almost impossible for the varsity to win that game.
Nice.
They only get points when they score on the other end. And if they were to take a charge or something. And so I think mentally you can toughen them up and pull more out of them when you make it tougher for them to even get points. So a lot of things we do, I did steal from Donnie over the years is, 2-on-3, 3-on-4 down and back. And it's almost impossible for the varsity to win. They get points for stops in some of those drills because even the JV scores 4-on-3 a lot. So
yeah.
Anyway,
Coach, I love you kind of went a cool direction there. An idea of having drills or games that are pretty much impossible for players to win. I don't think we do that very much, but to me, there's a value in them learning how to fight and not quit in a situation that's pretty hopeless. I'm going to nerd out real quick on you, and before I do that, are you a Star Trek fan?
I'm more of a Star Wars guy.
Okay, that's fine. Now we're good there. So I'm both, which typically people are one or the other, but I like both. And my dad got me onto Star Trek early on in my life. I found Star Wars a little bit later, but Kobayashi Maru, I believe that's the name of the test that all the captains or admirals have to go through, and it's an unwinnable test. If they're going to be in a situation where they're forced to either like lose, they're gonna die. Someone else that is going to die, like, and it's a simulation, it's a test. But Captain Kirk in one of the movies, and this is the newer movies, he actually like rigged it, like had a code put into where the thing he tried to do worked, and they're like, hold on, this is impossible. Like the whole idea behind the Kobayashi, and that might be the wrong name, but I think it's Kobayashi Maru. But golly, I want to know now, Coach, is
Yeah.
that you won't win this game,
Yeah.
but you have to learn what that feels like to be an winnable. I think we can put our players in that situation sometimes to so that they know they're down 15 with 2 minutes left. There's a really good chance we don't win, but we know what it's like to fight in that type of situation. I don't know, something to that.
Yeah, I agree.
Probably
Yeah.
edit all that out.
No, that's good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, good stuff.
I think what we've been talking about though a lot is the 75%. The 25% of coaching, in my opinion, is X's and O's, spacing, concepts,
Yeah.
the fun stuff. 75% is how we work, how we show up, the preparation, how coachable the players are, the culture that we create. Like that's the 75%. But I think if we're not careful, we spend time on the 25% and then realize that we've missed out on a large chunk of it.
Right. That's a good point, Coach.
What size school is it? 4A or 5A?
3A.
Okay, so being you call that smaller school in Texas,
Right.
right? I mean,
We're on the
definitely,
smaller end of 3A. So,
yeah, and it's definitely not an Allen High School where you got 7,000
right.
students. So, um, balancing two sport athletes is something that a lot of coaches at smaller schools, if you're at that 4A and below, or at a private school where we only have 340 kids, like, or half are boys, balancing between sports is huge. How do you do that in your situation as a basketball coach, but also as an athletic director?
Well, I mean, that one of our biggest goals is to get kids to play at least two sports. We don't twist their arms, uh, but trying to get our best athletes to play. And so I'll speak to the girls' side. They have volleyball, and we have nothing else in the fall besides cross country, so it really doesn't affect. So we have volleyball, softball, girls' basketball. They send to balance it out to make sure kids are getting skill work and everything. Every Wednesday, they go to their next sport that they're going to get some work. I think they've done a pretty good job of trying to emphasize importance of other sports across the board. And so until they get to the playoffs, and then the coach gets everybody the whole time into the playoffs. And it hasn't really affected them or hurt them or whatever. In the fall, for me, I share the baseball guys with our baseball coach. He'll ask for them, and I don't as the AD, I want to first of all model that I'm not gonna,
Yeah.
and secondly, I mean, we're in the gym a lot. Um, and if you know anything about Central Heights, baseball is pretty big. We're number 5 this year or 4 in the state, and my best basketball player is arguably our best baseball player over the next few years, a big 6'7" sophomore, uh, uh, and his brother's a major league pitcher. So, in the summers and whatever, when he's going off doing all these things his brother did, who's now making millions, it's hard to, for one, argue with, hey, don't go do all that, come play basketball, because this kid's good in
It's
both.
never going to happen for you.
No,
Literally, my brother.
yeah, and it can happen for him too.
Yeah.
But he's also a next level basketball guy if you put the same work in. But
Yeah.
it is what it is, and so you just, I think it's important for kids to know you care about their other successes, and if you don't, uh, they're not. I lose a lot that go straight baseball. I don't know why they feel like they have to. I mean, we would have been better this year with some kids that just chose not to do it, and they're pretty good athletes. But you gotta be prepared for that as a coach. You can, I mean, it doesn't make me mad at them. They want to go do that. That's their thing. But trying to find ways where they feel like I'm validating that that thing matters too, and I think every coach should find ways to do that. I think it was Brad Chastain, who used to coach at Coppell for years. Spoke at my very first clinic or second clinic years ago, and we've been friends for a long time. And he uh, he said, go to the football coach and find out who maybe you could help play football for him. That's wild to think about, but you've got to do that in
Yeah.
Texas. You have to. I'm in a unique situation, but truth is, what's best for a kid is experiencing more than one thing. What's best for all programs is for your best athletes to play. There are those that need to zero in, or they won't be good at any of them. To be honest, I think that's an honest conversation. But you don't ever tell a kid that. I think a kid has to figure that out. I think you tell them how much work they have to do to be good, and then if they want to continue where they are, that's fine. But now with the rules of to work with them in the summers too, I think it's helped because you get a little baseball time, you get a little basketball time, so you're getting no kid feels like he's missing out on some stuff and therefore won't make a team or whatever. I think that's where it's hurt us some is some kids don't want to be in basketball because they're afraid they might not make the varsity baseball team because they're spending time in basketball, which isn't true. With our baseball coach, whatever, it's a perception in a kid's mind, and I think you're just trying to teach them. No, you can play both. You can play both. It's important. It'd be good for you to help your footwork, whatever. But don't force them, and be willing to bend over backwards for somebody else. Uh, don't hold on too tightly, is what I would say. That's so.
Man, a lot of good nuggets there. And I think you're right on the money with validating things that they do outside of basketball. Like how do our players know that we really care about them? We ask them about things that they're involved with. Debate, cross country, football, baseball. Like if you don't even acknowledge those parts of their lives, I think there has to be this idea that they have of like you only care about basketball and
Yeah.
that's all you're about. And so if we, like you kind of said, if we care about kids, if we're in this for kids, and this is me, like I'm not perfect in this at all, and being feeling territorial about players, man, it's so easy to get that way. We have to be really careful with how we phrase things to those players that are in another sport at that time. And the idea is a football player is walking down the hallway, and I say, "Hey, Johnny, man, you would have loved being in the gym today. Like we did this, this, and this." It seems innocent, and I'm just explaining to him about the fun stuff we did, but it creates this idea of like he's missing out by doing this other thing. And that is like that was a lesson that AD taught me years ago to stop doing that. But I
Yeah.
just think supporting them in those decisions, especially when they love doing multiple things. Like
Yeah.
if we care about them, why would we want them to not do the things they love to do? But I don't know, a lot of good points there, Coach.
The kid I was telling you about earlier that wasn't very good this year, ag kid. I mean, he's like the area director in the state or something, like big time. He missed a whole tournament because he was learning how to artificially inseminate and getting certified. Well, he's going to make money doing that. What am I going to tell him to do? Come play basketball?
Forget
I
that.
mean, first of all,
Forget
you can't
that.
make
Come to the
layups anyway.
tournament.
No, but so I mean, I hate losing the player during, and if he was like a dude that could 360 dunk, I probably would have been a little more. But it's still
Yeah.
this is your future and livelihood. These are the things you love, and you gotta, like you said, you gotta validate that. So
And I think that attitude towards it allows basketball to be a bright spot in his high school career instead of something he just had to get through or something that held him back. I don't
yeah,
think we want to have anybody think about our programs like that.
yeah, I agree, 100%.
Coach, the speed round. These are going to be quick questions. First thing that pops in your head, blurt it out.
Okay.
Ready? A favorite ice cream flavor?
Just vanilla.
No toppings?
Caramel.
Okay. All right. Greatest shooter of all time?
Curry.
Your favorite gym that you've coached in?
I'll tell you where I like going on the road, die ball. It's a madhouse. And I love winning. Yeah. So
Nice. Love winning there. Best basketball movie of all time?
Hoosiers.
Texting or talking?
Talking.
For high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
I've moved to shot clock.
Ooh, moved there.
I think we'll be good with it. I think we'll
Yeah.
get better with it. I think some people, they won't. They'll think they have to play at this breakneck speed. We'll definitely get better.
Nice. Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
You're up 3 on defense with 5 seconds left. Do you foul or no foul?
I'm getting to prove it.
Nice.
Well, my assistant the foul. He said, "No, let's not." This was a few years ago. It was at die ball. They went to the regional finals that year. They hit it, and we go to overtime. And they celebrated for 5 minutes. It was wild.
Oh.
Thankfully, we pulled out the win in overtime, maybe double overtime. I can't remember, but and
you thought never again, never again.
We're gonna foul.
What book would you give someone?
The Word, the Bible. But if you want to go more generic, it'd probably be some sort of theological book. I don't know. I'm kind of weird like that. I love to read theological. Knowing God was a great book for me to read by J.I. Packer. So
I have it. I haven't read it yet. So my wife got it for me, I think, this past Christmas. So excited to get to go through that. 2 more. Favorite place to travel?
Anywhere there's a beach.
Nice.
Beach. So
last one, probably most important as a player in basketball. Who's the GOAT?
Oh, without a doubt, Michael Jordan. There's no discussion.
Do you enjoy getting into those talks with your players?
Well, they don't really get into them. I have some other coaching friends that are younger. There's just to me, I just can't compare. Of course, I grew up, but
that's a big factor.
It is. But when you start watching and see, I just don't think there's a comparison. There's some great players now. LeBron's great and all that. I think he could have been so much better. That's my opinion. I'll be quiet. I mean, I think there's something missing. That's just my opinion.
There's a level of deferring that's always rubbed me wrong with him. He is okay late in the game, giving it to others and letting them try. And I'm thinking, this is the time. I love his passing. He is incredible at his size and the ball handling and the vision. But there's a moment in games where Jordan said, "This is my time, and I've got it." I just remember watching LeBron almost wanting to rip my hair out, like, be aggressive. Like this, go score.
The Mavs, when the Mavs beat him. What happened to him? And the Mavs, I thought, were not the better team, or I didn't have the best player.
Yeah.
But he quit attacking. Who can stop 280 pounds, 6'8", from getting to the rim when he wants to? He just quits doing it. Sometimes.
He's slower now, but he can still. No one can stop it when that freight train comes downhill.
So it's mindset. It's mindset, and and Jordan had the mindset that just blows everybody out of the water.
That's it, Coach. This was so much fun, man. Really enjoyed our time, and I really enjoyed getting to know you better at the clinic, and want to encourage any coaches to check that out. But thank you for all you're doing for the game, and this was great.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. It's man, what a blast. Enjoyed it. So look forward to talking to you soon, brother.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi Podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.